The nurse who walks. 8 miles. Ellen DeGeneres stopped mid-sentence, staring at the 28-year-old woman sitting across from her, whose worn sneakers told a story her smile tried to hide. Sarah Mitchell's feet were bandaged under those shoes, but her eyes carried something that made Ellen's breath catch. Not exhaustion, but an unshakable purpose that transcended pain. What happened in the next 60 seconds would become the most heartbreaking moment in television history. Because sometimes when sacrifice meets innocence and a superstar recognizes a real hero, the whole world stops to remember what love actually looks like. Nobody in that Warner Brothers studio knew they were about to witness something that would redefine heroism for a generation. Not the cameras rolling, not the producers checking their notes, and certainly not Sarah Mitchell, who thought she was just there to talk about a viral video that had captured her daily 8-mile walk to work. But Ellen knew. Ellen had been planning this moment for 5 weeks, ever since a video had made her call the biggest pop star on the planet and say 7 words that would change a nurse's life forever. There's a hero who needs your voice. The video was only 73 seconds long, shot by a hospital security guard at 5:47 a.m. In it, Sarah was walking through the hospital parking lot in darkness, limping slightly, her nurse's scrubs visible under a thin jacket. The guard had filmed her every morning for a week, watching her arrive on foot before sunrise, rain or shine. The caption read, "This nurse walks 8 miles to work every day because her car broke down 6 months ago and she can't afford to fix it. She works in pediatric oncology. She walks 8 miles to save dying children, and she's never once been late." Within 48 hours, 60 million views. Within 3 weeks, Ellen had tracked her down, and Taylor Swift had said yes before hearing the full story. Now, as Sarah sat in that blue chair, her bandaged feet hidden under shoes held together with duct tape, she had no idea that the woman whose music she'd hummed during those lonely 8-mile walks was watching her backstage, equally amazed by her story. "Sarah, 8 miles, Ellen said, her voice carrying a weight that silenced the studio. "Every day. That's a marathon every week." "Why?" Sarah smiled, and there was something both fragile and unbreakable in that smile. "Because my patients need consistency. I work in pediatric oncology, children with cancer. These kids are fighting for their lives every single day. They're scared. They're in pain. And they need to know that when they wake up, Nurse Sarah will be there. I can't let them down because my car broke down." The studio went completely quiet. "Tell me what happened to your car." 6 months ago, the transmission failed. The repair estimate was $3,200. I'm a nurse, but I'm also paying off nursing school loans, helping my mom with her medical bills, she has MS, and trying to save something for the future. I couldn't afford the repair, so I sold the car for $400 and started walking. Ellen felt something crack in her chest. "Sarah, that's 4 hours of walking every day. When do you sleep?" "I wake up at 4:30 a.m., walk for 2 hours, work my 12-hour shift, walk 2 hours home, sleep from 9 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. On my days off, I visit my mom. It's not ideal, but it works." "What about rain, cold? The video showed you walking in storms." Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "I have a rain jacket, and I remind myself that my patients are inside fighting battles I can't imagine. If they can fight cancer, I can walk through rain." The audience was crying now. This wasn't inspiration porn. This was real sacrifice, the kind that happens in darkness while the rest of the world sleeps. "Tell me about your patients," Ellen said gently. And here Sarah's composure finally cracked. Her eyes filled with tears. "I have a patient, Emma. She's 7 years old, leukemia. She's been fighting for 3 years. Every morning when I get there, she asks if I walked again. I always tell her yes, and she says, "Nurse Sarah, you're so strong. When I grow up, I want to be strong like you." Sarah wiped her eyes. But she doesn't understand. She's the strong one. She fights every day with needles and chemo and pain I'll never understand. And if walking 8 miles means Emma has one person she can count on, then I'll walk 80 miles. The studio erupted in applause, but Ellen held up her hand. This wasn't the moment for applause. This was the moment for something deeper. "Sarah, why didn't you ask for help? Why didn't you start a GoFundMe, tell people your story?" "Because it's not about me. Those kids didn't choose cancer. They didn't ask for this fight. But I chose to be a nurse. I chose this. So if walking is what it takes to keep my promise to them, that's just what I do." But Ellen wasn't just listening as a talk show host anymore. She was listening as someone who was about to facilitate a conversation between this nurse and someone who understood what it meant to walk through storms, to show up no matter what, to turn pain into purpose. Ellen stood up, and the audience sensed something massive coming. "Sarah, there's someone here who's been following your story for 5 weeks. Someone who knows what it means to keep going when everything hurts. Someone who walks onto stages around the world to bring light to people's darkness." Sarah looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Someone whose music you hum during those 8-mile walks. Someone who believes that real heroes don't wear capes. They wear scrubs and walk through storms." The studio audience began to buzz with anticipation, but this time the energy was different, more reverent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ellen announced, her voice breaking slightly, "please welcome Taylor Swift." The studio exploded. 300 people jumped to their feet screaming. But Ellen was watching Sarah, whose face went through confusion, recognition, and then complete shock. Her hands flew to her mouth. And then she started crying. Not quiet tears, but the kind that come from years of walking alone in darkness, suddenly being seen. Taylor Swift walked onto that stage carrying herself with grace, but she wasn't bringing her pop star energy. She was bringing something more powerful, the focused presence of someone who'd been moved to their core. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, no performance costume, just humanity. "Sarah," Taylor said, walking directly to her, "I've been watching your video every morning for 5 weeks, and I need to tell you something." Sarah couldn't speak. She was shaking, staring at the woman whose songs had been her companion through hundreds of miles of lonely walks, whose music had been the soundtrack to her survival. Taylor knelt beside her chair. Not stood, not sat. Knelt. "You walk 8 miles in darkness so children with cancer can see light. That's not just dedication. That's love. That's what real heroism looks like." Sarah broke down completely. Taylor pulled her into a hug, holding her the way you'd hold someone who'd been carrying too much weight for too long. When Taylor pulled back, she reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. First, the practical stuff. In this envelope are keys. Keys to a brand new car. Not just any car, a hybrid that'll never break down on you. Full warranty, 5 years of insurance, and every tank of gas for the next 5 years is covered. Sarah gasped, but Taylor wasn't finished. Ellen stepped forward with a second envelope. Sarah, you're paying off nursing school loans and helping your mom. This envelope contains a check for $150,000, enough to pay off your loans, cover your mom's medical expenses for the next 2 years, and finally breathe. The audience erupted, but Taylor held up her hand. But there's more. Sarah, you mentioned Emma, the 7-year-old who wants to be strong like you. I've been talking to the hospital. The pediatric oncology unit where you work needs funding for family support services. I'm donating $1 million to create the Sarah Mitchell Family Support Fund. It will help families of pediatric cancer patients with transportation, housing, and basic needs. Because you've shown us that showing up matters. Sarah couldn't stand. She couldn't speak. She could only cry as Taylor held her hands. And Sarah? Emma and every patient in your unit, I want to meet them. I'm doing a private concert at the hospital, just for your kids. Because if they're fighting that hard, they deserve something to smile about. But there was one more surprise. On the large screen behind them appeared faces Sarah recognized immediately. Her patients. 15 children, some with no hair, some with IV poles, all wearing hospital gowns and the biggest smiles. "Nurse Sarah!" they shouted together. Emma, the 7-year-old, stepped forward, holding a sign that read, "You walked for us. Today we stand for you." Sarah turned to look at the screen and completely collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Years of walking alone, of wondering if anyone saw her sacrifice, of questioning if it mattered. All of it released in that moment. "We love you, Nurse Sarah," Emma said through the screen. "And when I grow up, I'm going to be strong like you." Taylor leaned close to Sarah and whispered something the microphones barely caught. "You're already stronger than all of us combined." The show ended with Sarah, Ellen, and Taylor in a 3-way embrace. But the image that went viral wasn't the hug. It was Taylor kneeling beside Sarah, both crying, both understanding that real heroism doesn't happen on stages. It happens at 5:47 a.m. in hospital parking lots. 3 months later, Sarah Mitchell drove to work in her new car for the first time. She arrived in 15 minutes instead of 2 hours, but she found herself crying in the parking lot because she missed something about those walks. The quiet time to think, to pray for her patients, to prepare her heart for the battles ahead. So now, twice a week, Sarah parks a mile away and walks the last mile. Not because she has to, because it reminds her why she does this work. Emma is now in remission. On her last day of treatment, she gave Sarah a bracelet she'd made that said, "Strong like Nurse Sarah." The Sarah Mitchell Family Support Fund has helped 89 families with transportation, housing, and basic needs. Because Sarah showed everyone that showing up matters, even when it hurts. Taylor's private hospital concert happened 4 months after the show. 32 children, some too sick to sit up, experienced live music. Emma sat in the front row, held Sarah's hand, and sang every word to shake it off. Ellen keeps a photo from that day in her dressing room. Taylor kneeling beside Sarah, both understanding that fame is temporary, but impact is eternal. And Sarah still has her old duct-taped shoes, framed in her living room next to Emma's bracelet. Below them, a plaque reads, "Love doesn't count miles, it just walks. Share this story if you believe real heroes wear scrubs. Comment if a nurse changed your life. Tag a healthcare worker who shows up no matter what. Some people walk for exercise. Some walk because they have to. Some walk because children are counting on them. Those are the heroes we need to see.